O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. सभी लोगों को मेरा बहुत बहुत हार्दिक प्रणाम। आप सभी का शनिवार शाम शंकर लॉज दिल्ली की वीकली मीटिंग में स्वागत है। आज हमारे बीच फिर से डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता जी जो राष्ट्रीय प्रवक्ता हैं वो मौजूद हैं और उन्होंने इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक एस्ट्रल प्लेन एंड एस्ट्रल बॉडी के विषय में ऑलरेडी 4 टॉक्स ले चुके हैं, 3 फरवरी में और 1 मार्च के महीने में। तो आज उसी टॉपिक को वो आगे बढ़ाएंगे। जैसा कि हम लोग जानते ही हैं, डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता जी शंकर लॉज न्यू दिल्ली के वर्तमान में सेक्रेटरी हैं और उन्होंने सन 1989 में थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की सदस्यता ली थी तथा 2005 में वह सोसाइटी के लाइफ मेंबर बने थे। डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता जी कई बार दिल्ली फेडरेशन के प्रेसिडेंट रह चुके हैं और उन्होंने दिल्ली में बहुत से स्टडी कैंप्स में पार्टिसिपेट किया तथा स्वयं भी स्टडी कैंप लिए हैं। वह प्रोफेशनली एक डॉक्टर हैं तथा ईएसआई हॉस्पिटल में चेस्ट स्पेशलिस्ट के पद पर कार्यरत हैं। अब अधिक समय न लेते हुए मैं डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता जी को आग्रह करूंगा कि वे आज के विषय भूगर्लोक एवं भूगर्लोकीय शरीर के 4 पार्ट वो ऑलरेडी ले चुके हैं और उसके बाद हमारे साथ आगे फर्दर अपने थॉट शेयर करें। डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता।
नमस्कार माता जी। नमस्कार नमस्कार माता जी। Thank you very much. We've already covered 4 parts of the astral plane, and today we'll be starting off with where we left last time. And we are currently seeing the entities which are present on the astral plane. So we have already seen that we've been told that there are 3. I'll just present it so that it will become easier. Just to recapitulate, there are 3 groups of entities present on the astral plane. So these 3 groups of inhabitants have been classified as human, non-human, and artificial. Already we have covered the human being, meaning those who are living on the physical plane as well, and those who are human but are currently not having any physical body. So these are the 2 groups within the human entities. Then we have the non-human entities. Amongst these, we had discussed the elemental essence, then the astral body of animals. Third, we had discussed in detail regarding the nature spirits and then the devas. Now we have come to a very interesting group of entities on the astral plane, and these are known as the artificial entities. The artificial inhabitants of the astral plane have been subdivided into 3: the elementals formed unconsciously, elementals formed consciously, and human artificials. We'll go over them one by one. Overall, the artificial entities which inhabit the astral plane are the largest class or the most numerous entities present on the astral plane. And also, as C.W. Leadbeater has written here, they are also the most important to man, to human being. And we will shortly see why. These entities are created by the humans themselves. When we desire or when we think, we are creating these entities on the astral plane from the astral matter. These entities are therefore our own creations. Now, in the earlier part of the Theosophical Society, when this book was written as Theosophical Manual number 5, and this manual was based on the transactions of the London Lodge, because London Lodge was active, and in London Lodge, in one of those meetings, C.W. Leadbeater took up this topic of the astral plane. What had happened actually, just to digress a little bit, that A.P. Sinnett, being the vice president of the London Lodge at that time, was in discussion with C.W. Leadbeater, and he told C.W. Leadbeater that in the theosophical literature, not much has been told about the various spiritualistic phenomena and what is happening, the details of the various entities and how those things happen on the astral plane, which are reflected onto the physical plane. Basically, what at that time they were both very much interested in the spiritualistic phenomena, in the mediums, and the various types of activities of the seance rooms. To this, C.W. Leadbeater had replied that all of this has been described, and if you allow, I will give a talk on this in the London Lodge. So it was agreed that C.W. Leadbeater would talk on this. Now, to make this understandable, the various phenomena, he had to give a general outline of the astral plane. And this is how he came up with the topic of astral plane, which then was published as the Transactions, which later was incorporated as a Theosophical Manual. And this is what we are also studying. So, the artificial entities that we are talking about are basically those which have been created by the humans. And as I was saying, that in 1894, they were called elementals as a general class. Later on, in the books of C.W. Leadbeater and Annie Besant, they then started to call them as thought forms. In fact, there is a book by C.W. Leadbeater by the same name, Thought Forms. We can have a very, we can actually have a look at that book. It gives much more in detail with a lot of pictures about all these entities. Now, let us understand when we say elementals here in this book, it means thought forms. As we go on further, we'll see. Now, these entities, as he says, are so many in number and such a differing variety of these entities are there that to classify them, to divide them in various groups, is almost impossible. So what he did for the purpose of making us understand who have no idea about the astral plane, which we can't see what is happening in the astral plane. For us, to make it easier for us, he divided them into two groups basically. Elementals which are made unconsciously and elementals which are made consciously. The third group, human artificial, is actually a very, very small group, and that we'll take up later. But these are the two basically entity groups that he divided this artificial group into. So, with this introduction, let us go further and see what are the elementals which are formed unconsciously. Now, we have already studied about the elemental essence. The matter of the astral plane, the various atoms of the astral plane, which are subdivided into 7 categories based upon the density of matter, just like in the physical matter, we have solid, liquid, gas, and etheric matter. In the same way, in the astral matter, also there are 7 subdivisions based on the density of matter. On top of this, the life of the solar logos, the second aspect, the second logos, or the second life wave, or the second force of the logos. Who is the solar logos? We have seen earlier. The creator of the solar system. In Theosophy, we call the originator of the solar system as solar logos. For us, he is the Ishvara, the God. So, one of his aspects, which in Hinduism we call Vishnu aspect, the preserver aspect, that energy comes down and gives quality to these atoms. The qualities which enable these atoms to aggregate, to join, to combine, or to repel each other, or to combine in certain combinations to produce different types of shapes and different types of materials. So, in this way, this life which comes and gives the atoms these various qualities, this has been called as elemental essence. Now, the thought or desire of a human being, as it is produced within the human being, like if I desire something or I think about something, a force is sent out within the matter of the astral plane and the lower mental plane. Usually, the desire and thinking are happening together because they are very much together. Whatever we desire, we also think how to get it. So, usually, both the things are happening at the same time. So, when this force of desire and thought it acts on the astral plane and the lower mental plane, it causes a disturbance in this elemental essence, in this life of the matter which is surrounding us in the astral plane. And because of this force, the matter takes up a shape depending on what kind of desire or thought we have expressed in ourselves. This shape which is taken up has been called by him as an elemental. Since we are continuously desiring something, either to get something or to run away from something, and then thinking about something or the other, we are constantly reducing or making or shaping up or strengthening these various elements. So here C.W. Leadbeater says that when I desire something and I create an elemental or a different type of a form in the astral and the mental plane, which in later books has been called a thought form, then the life of this creation of mine will depend upon how much intensity with which I made that I had that desire. If it is an intense desire or a deep thought, then the life of that form, that elemental or thought form, will be much more than if I had a desire which is a very fleeting kind of desire, very not having a lot of intensity, just a wish, not a deep desire. Then, if it is a just a small wish I had that kind of a thing, then whatever is formed in the on the astral plane, it just dissipates away once the effect, the energy of that desire is dissipated or goes away. This is one point which he wants us to understand. The second thing he wants to make us understand is that in this slide, as it is given, that once the form is made, once I have desired or thought, and that force has gone out from me into the astral world and the lower mental world, then that form is now no longer under my conscious control. I am talking about this group of elementals from unconsciously, because we don't know how to control these forms. We have no idea, knowledge of what we are doing. So, because we are not trained, we are not clairvoyants, we are not that kind of people whom we can say that we are disciples of the masters, or we are very high up on the black arts side. So we are basically people who are continuously producing these thought forms, and these forms, these elementals, are no longer under our control once they are formed. What happens to them, we will see, and how they affect us, also we will see, and how what is happening with them. Let us go and see further what happens. I'm going very slow so that we understand what is. Uh, we understand this in a very detailed way, and we try, and also I want that we should retain this knowledge. This is very basic knowledge. And now for our friends um, who want me to speak in Hindi also a little bit, I'll say आज हम बात कर रहे हैं उन एलिमेंटल्स और थॉट फॉर्म्स की जो हम बनाते हैं या हमसे बनते हैं जब हम किसी कोई इच्छा रखते हैं, जब हमारे अंदर कोई इच्छा पैदा होती है या हमारे अंदर कोई विचार पैदा होता है, तो एस्ट्रल जगत में और लोअर मेंटल जगत के अंदर कुछ फॉर्म बन जाता है हमारे इस इच्छा और विचार की वजह से। ये जो फॉर्म बनता है, ये फॉर्म हमारे बनने के बाद हमारे अधीन नहीं रहता, हमारा कोई कंट्रोल इसके ऊपर नहीं रहता। इस फॉर्म के अंदर जो इसकी फॉर्म की जो लाइफ है, कितनी देर तक वो टिका रहेगा, वो डिपेंड करता है कितना हमने इंटेंसिटी, कितना हमने स्ट्रॉन्ग हमारा डिज़ायर या विचार था, उस पर डिपेंड करता है। तो अब हम आगे चलते हैं। नाउ लेट अस सी व्हाट हैपेंस in detail when we desire or think. Just like on the physical plane, when I speak, the vibrations, they move from me, from where the sound is coming, and it travels all around me in the physical plane. So it's like a rippling effect, as we can see in this slide. So on the surface of a pond or a large body of water, if a stone is dropped, then we can see these ripples happening. When I speak, then in all the three dimensions, the sound is traveling everywhere, up, down, here, where, everywhere, the sound is traveling. How much it will travel depends on how strongly I have spoken, how loudly I have spoken, and how clearly it will be understood by somebody else depends on how clearly I have spoken. So this rippling effect also happens in the astral and the lower mental worlds. And these have been called by C.W. Leadbeater in his book Thought Forms, and also in this other spectacular book, Man, Visible and Invisible, as radiating vibrations or waves. So this is what happens when I think or decide. So if I have a desire, let us say a devotional desire, then this devotional desire, devotion will act, will have a rippling effect. This devotion will carry in all directions, and if it is quite strong, it will travel far. And as it will travel, it will strike many astral and mental bodies. And as it strikes the various bodies of other men, it will produce within them, or it will impact them and result in their bodies responding in similar manner. Once their So supposing I am here and I have a devotional thought, supposing I'm in a temple, and in temple I have a devotional feeling, and that feeling carries on to the road in front of the temple, then a person who is sitting or going or passing by, his astral body is impacted by this vibration, this ripple of devotion. Then, if that person is not otherwise occupied with something else, he may find himself affected by this devotion and devotion arising within him. Now, if he is a Hindu, he may have devotion arising for a Hindu god, whatever, whosoever he actually um, reveres. If he is a Christian, then he will have devotion arising for his Christian entity. It could be Lord Jesus, it could be Mother Mary, it could be baby Jesus, it could be any of the angels, depending on person to person. So, whosoever that person is having devotion towards, that devotion would be excited or it would be stimulated because of this rippling or this radiating vibration. If that person is occupied with something, then that rippling or vibration will just pass him without affecting him, and he will not be conscious of anything. If that person doesn't have any devotional aspect within him, then it will just elevate that person a bit and make him feel good. So the radiating vibrations, once they are produced from the center where they are produced by a human being, they radiate in all directions. And I'm talking about desires and lower mind, thinking in the lower mind, the concrete thoughts. So we're just talking about astral plane, so let me just concentrate on the desire part. So when a desire arises within me, that desire also moves out from me in terms of radiation or waves and impacts other people and affects other people depending on whether they are in the meantime occupied with something or not. If they are not occupied in their mind with some activity, then it will have an impact on them because this wave is just passing through. If at that moment that person is occupied with something, then the wave will just pass through. So, just like if I make a sound and somebody else is sitting nearby and can hear the sound but is occupied with his mobile or some other activity, then the sound will definitely strike the ear, but he will take no notice of the sound and will not be affected by the sound. Whereas if that person is not at that particular time involved or occupied with something, some other activity, then that person will definitely hear the sound. In the same way, this is what happens here. जब भी हम इच्छा कोई जागृत करते हैं, तो वो इच्छा एक वेव की तरह पहले तो रेडिएट करती है। वो जो क्वालिटी होती है उस इच्छा की, वो रेडिएट करती है, और वो जितने भी लोग होते हैं आसपास, जितनी भी स्ट्रेंथ से वो इच्छा बनी है, उतनी दूर तक वो जाती है, और जो जो भी रास्ते में उसके आता है उसको अफेक्ट करती है। और जैसे उस उनकी शरीर आस्ट्रल बॉडीज को वो टच करती है, अगर वो दूसरा व्यक्ति किसी और काम में व्यस्त नहीं है, तो उसको वो स्ट्राइक करती है और उसके अंदर वही टाइप का डिज़ायर, उसी प्रकार का डिज़ायर वो उत्पन्न करने में, स्टिमुलेट करने में स्टिमुलेट करती है। अगर वो दूसरा व्यक्ति व्यस्त है किसी काम में, तो ये रेडिएशन उसको स्ट्राइक करती है पर उस पर कोई असर नहीं डालती। So this is the first result of that, which we call as radiating vibrations or waves whenever we have a desire or thought. And as we have been told that approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts occur in a human being in a day. So we can understand how many times we are radiating, and whatever we are radiating must be affecting others. In the same way, the other people are also radiating, they must be affecting. And because we are so unconscious or insensitive to what is being generated from within, as far as our desires and our thoughts are concerned, and what is being generated from us. We are being impacted from outside, and then we are being affected. We don't know. In the physical form, we know if somebody touches us from outside, we know it is not coming from within, it is coming from a touch from outside. But if there is some other event which is happening from within our physical body, we know. So there is a sharp demarcation in the physical body regarding whether a sensation in the physical body is occurring from within or it is being caused from outside. Now, this is the first result. What is the second result whenever there is a desire or a thought? The second result is the production of a thought form. This thought form is what in this book of the astral plane has been called as elemental. Here we can see in the slide on the bottom right side there is a thought form, and this thought form is having three colors in it and it has a specific shape. Now we'll go later on and touch a little bit upon these colors and shapes, but this talk today is not about thought forms, so we will not go too much in detail regarding this. After this, what are the various types or classes of thought forms? I am I want all of us as theosophical students to remember these. What happens whenever we desire or think? These two things are happening. We are creating thought forms, and there is a radiation of that feeling or a thought in a rippling effect all around us. Now, as far as the thought form is concerned, there are three types of or three classes of thought forms. These three classes of thought forms also we must memorize, or at least we must be clear about. Number one, whenever I think of myself in some place, so supposing I think today of myself physically present in the lodge because I'm at home, I'm not in the lodge where we hold the meetings. But supposing I were to close my eyes and think of the lodge and the activities of the lodge and everything about the lodge, then I would be making a form in the lodge itself, in that physical area of the lodge itself. So, supposing, let's take another example. If I were to think I am in a hill station currently, which I went a few years back, and I think of a particular place in that, or a shop there, or a hotel where I stayed, or a lake, or a waterfall, then a form of mine, my form, my body's, my image will be formed there in the astral and the lower mental matter. This is the first class of thought form. So I will read it, what C.W. Leadbeater has written. That which takes the image of the thinker. When a man thinks of himself in some distant place or wishes earnestly to be in that place, he makes a thought form in his own image which appears there. पहला जो थॉट फॉर्म का जो ग्रुप है वो ये है कि जब एक व्यक्ति अपने बारे में सोचता है किसी और जगह के अंदर कि मैं उस जगह पे फलाना जगह पे हूँ या जाना चाहता हूँ, उसके बारे में उसको पता है कि वो सही एक जगह है जहाँ जाया जा सकता है, जहाँ वो कभी पहले गया था, वो फिजिकली प्रेजेंट है वो जगह, तो उसकी इमेज, उसका जो फॉर्म है वहाँ बन जाता है और उसी जगह पे आ जाता है जहाँ पे वो जाना चाहता है। उसका असर ये होता है कि कोई भी क्लियर पॉइंट वहाँ पे या साइकिकली जो डेवलप्ड है या देख सकता है, उसको वो फॉर्म वहाँ पे दिखाई देगा अगर उसमें एबिलिटी है देखने की। So when a thinker is thinking about a distant place or wants to be in a particular place, the form is made in that particular place, in that particular area. A person in that area can see this form. So supposing I think of myself, let us say, in a temple Let's say in Delhi there is a temple called Birla Temple. So if I'm there in the Birla Temple in front of the main shrine, the Murti in the shrine room, if somebody else is there who can see subtler matter, astral matter, then that person will be able to see this thought form of mine, my image there. And now, supposing if there is a person who is psychically developed but not trained, we saw in the first group of astral entities, of human astral entities who are living, who are psychically developed but not trained, such people can be misled into thinking that that person is present in front of them in the subtler body, whereas it is just a thought form. That is why training is very much important. When in the astral plane a form is seen, it may or may not be of that person. It may be just an image, a form made by the thinking of that person in some other area. So I'm sitting here and 15 kilometers away from my place, there is a temple and my form is made there. The distance is of no value. I can think of myself on the North Pole or South Pole or any other place, provided that place is actually physically real. And that astral matter and the image, that there is a continuity between where I'm sitting in the astral plane and the lower mental plane. Then that form will be made there. So this is the first class of thought form. Now let's go to the second class of thought forms. Now here we are constantly thinking about something or the other. So if I am thinking of some person, then what happens is in my mental body, in my astral body, if that thought is also associated with a desire, then in both in my astral and mental bodies, a small form, very small, minute form of that object, of that person, it could be anything, will be made. It will be a concrete thought. It will have a particular shape, size, color, whatever details I want to put it into it. It will be formed. It will be produced within the astral and the mental bodies. Since we are talking about the mental body here, let's say it will be produced within the mental body and it will be projected out. Once it is there, completed, it will project it out and will lie in front of the mental body. So, in this way, we are constantly making concrete thoughts, concrete forms, and they are coming out of us and lying all around us. As we have seen earlier, that the length of time to which they will remain before disappearing depends on how much strength with which I made them, how much desire I had, how much intensity I had for these to be made, for the picture to be created, for the thought to be created. How much desire I had depends on depending on that, that form will have the life. So in this way, if he thinks of a room, a house, a landscape, tiny images of these things are formed within the mental body and afterwards externalized. This is also true when we are not thinking of something which is actually physically present. So we could be thinking of a spaceship which is not there in anywhere. We could be thinking of some alien. We could be thinking of anything. Imagination has no boundaries. So when we think of something which is concrete, it will get projected outside of our mental body. So here, C.W. Leadbeater has given an example that the painter who forms a conception of his future picture builds it up out of the matter of his mental body and then projects it into the space in front of him, keeps it before his mind's eye, and copies it. So, if I am a painter, if I am a sculptor, if I am anybody, and if I have created something out of my thought, I have thought over something, an image which I want to draw, Then after I finish that, that that particular thought will lie in front of my mental body, and then I will start to make it in the physical plane, and I will copy it out from whatever I have created myself. So this is how, this is just an example. So this is the second class of thought form. हम लोग जब किसी भी ऑब्जेक्ट के बारे में सोचते हैं या डिजायर करते हैं, तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम उसकी एक इमेज अपने बॉडी के अंदर, मेंटल और डिजायर बॉडी के अंदर बनाते हैं, और वो बन के बाहर आती है हमारी बॉडीज के सामने, मेंटल बॉडी के सामने, वो वहाँ पे तैयार हो जाती है। जैसे कि हम किसी दोस्त के बारे में सोचें, किसी कमरे के बारे में, घर के बारे में, कोई भी चीज़ के बारे में सोचें, वो बाहर निकल के वहीं पे छोटे से रूप के अंदर आगे खड़ी हो जाती है। तो ये इस तरीके से हम बहुत सारे ऐसे ऑब्जेक्ट्स को क्रिएट करते रहते हैं, ऐसे थॉट फॉर्म्स को बनाते रहते हैं मेंटल जगत के अंदर, एस्ट्रल जगत के अंदर। और इस तरीके से ये दूसरा टाइप का थॉट फॉर्म होता है, दूसरी क्लास का थॉट फॉर्म होता है। मैं शशि मुझे आपको म्यूट कर रहा हूँ। अच्छा, अब हम आते हैं, लेट्स गो टू द थर्ड वन। द थर्ड इज, in nature in itself, he says, C.W. Leadbeater, that the first two are having subjective creation or subjective type of forms, in which the, depending on the thinker, these forms are being made. But this third class of thought forms is a generic, or what nature intended, that way a thought form is created. In other words, if I have devotion, devotional thought, devotional feeling, then that devotion towards my deity will produce a thought form of the previous class, in which I will have the image of the deity in front of me, and then I will create a small image of the deity in front of me, depending on my ability to create the outline of the deity and fill up the different details of the deity. That is my subjective thing. This is the second class of thought form which we have just discussed. But something else will also happen, and that something else is that another thought form will be created, and this is a different thought form, and this is a thought form which will be created irrespective of who is having devotional feeling. So if we are two people, one is a Christian and I am a Hindu, and I have devotion towards my deity, and the Christian has devotion towards his deity, then a thought form will be created which will be the same kind of thought form in both the cases. Because this is how nature intended that, or in nature, these kind of thought forms are made with when a particular type of emotion or thinking takes place. These we can call them as generic to nature itself, to the plane itself. That is why it is slightly difficult to understand this. C.W. Leadbeater says that which takes a form entirely its own, natural to the astral or mental planes, and only these thought forms, because they are the same irrespective. So supposing I have, I'll show to you, rather that would be better. Now let's see this. The top form is a thought form of this third class, in which we have in thought form, in the book thought form, they have called it definite affection. So if I have definite affection means I have a person towards whom I have definite affection. Then what will happen, whenever this affection will arise, it will go towards that person in the shape. This is the shape the form will have, the color. This red color is the color of love, affection. And this direction, it's like a bullet going towards something. So this direction on the right side, this curved direction here, the person towards this form is going somewhere here, and this form is going towards that. The creator is on this side. This will happen irrespective of who's creating. So the thinker or the creator does not matter here. The quality of the thought, the nature of the thought, that is of more importance, and same type of form will be made irrespective of whosoever has made it. So this is the third class of thought form. The second class of thought form will also be made, in which I will have the image of that person towards whom I have affection. That will also be created within my astral and mental body and projected outwards from me, in front of me. So that will also happen, and this will also happen. So this has a very big impact, and we will make a little bit of more detailed study on this. First, let us see. So if there is a vague selfish affection, like if I am belonging to some community, I know that I should belong to this community, I should help a little bit in the community because the community will help me also whenever I need help. And I also feel very good about these people also. So it's a vague, it's not a specific affection, it's a vague affection, but it has this darker color within it. So that is a vague selfish affection. This is the third class of thought form. Similarly, here we can see peace and protection. So when a person has, let's say a mother is worried about the child and is feeling that the child should be protected, should be safe, should do good in his life, should no harm should fall upon the child, then what is happening? This kind of form is made. When this type of form is made, it goes towards the child and protects the child. We'll see what effects the thought forms have. But this thought form will be created and help the child. So this is also a specific form. And it is not just the mother, anyone who can do this. For anyone, this will be a generic kind of form. And the applications we'll just see as we go further. Let's see another one, the intention to know. So when the person wants to know, there is a student in the class, he wants to know what is being talked about. He wants to understand a concept. He wants to know, and this knowledge that he wants to gather, the understanding that he wants to create, this itself is a desire, a wish, a thought. And this itself will produce this kind of form. You can see the color is orangish. Normally, the yellow part indicates the intellectual, the intellect, the wish to know, the knowledge part. But when I come in, when the ego, the desired selfishness comes in a little bit, ambition comes in, then it takes a color of orange. We can see this here. Brown, green, black, gray, these are all negative colors as far as the astral and the lower mental worlds go. Here we can see if there is animal affection, it wants to hold on, it wants to grab somebody, he wants to have something from another person, this kind of a form is going to be made. If there is high ambition, somebody wants to climb up the ladder, wants to be at the top, this kind of effect, this kind of a form is seen. Then these are the helpful thoughts. Various different types of wonderful thought forms, very beautiful thought forms. As we can see, these are created in different conditions. So these are just a few examples that have been given in that book, thought forms. I would suggest those who are interested in this topic should read thought forms, also read Man Visible and Invisible. Now C.W. Leadbeater goes further and says the thought forms of this third class almost invariably manifest themselves upon the astral plane, as the vast majority of them are expressions of feeling as well as of thought. अगर हम देखें तो हम ये देखते हैं कि ये तीसरा प्रकार का जो थॉट फॉर्म्स का क्लास है, इसके अंदर जो फॉर्म बनते हैं, ये फॉर्म चाहे कोई भी सोचे या बनाने वाला हो, इच्छा करने वाला हो, विचार करने वाला हो, उस पे डिपेंडेंट नहीं है, मगर क्या इच्छा है और क्या विचार है उस पे डिपेंडेंट है। तो जो इच्छा की क्वालिटी, जो विचार की क्वालिटी है, उस पे डिपेंड करता है, उस प्रकार का फॉर्म बनेगा, चाहे कोई भी बना रहा हो। कोई भी मनुष्य पूरे इस पृथ्वी पे अगर सोच रहा है, डिवोशन है उसके अंदर, भक्ति भाव है, तो नीले रंग का फॉर्म बनेगा। कलर उसका जो होगा क्वालिटी, सो क्वालिटी ऑफ द थॉट डिटर्मिन्स द कलर। नेचर किसकी तरफ बन रहा है, क्या इंटेंसिटी है, क्या सोच है उसके पीछे, और उसके ऊपर भी डिपेंड करता है उसका फॉर्म। एंड so the quality of the thought determines the color, nature will determine the form, and how much clear that form will depend on how much clarity with which it has been formed. कितना ध्यान से उसको बनाया गया है, जिस मेंटल और एस्ट्रल बॉडी से बना है, वो कितना क्लियरली सोच सकते हैं या इच्छा रखते हैं, उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करेगा कितनी शार्प आउटलाइन है फॉर्म की, कितना बड़ा है, कितना वो उसके अंदर एनर्जी है, ये सारी चीज़ें इसमें हैं। तो दिस इज हाउ we see these are the three classes of thought forms. I'll just revise it again. There are the two effects of desire and thought. One is the radiating vibration or waves which go in all directions. It's like a gong. When we go to a temple, we put in, एक घंटा बजाते हैं ना, तो then there is a vibration, that sound comes up, and then it dies off. But at the same time, a form is also created when we think or desire, and whatever that form is created is it belongs to one of these three classes. So the first class is that of a thinker. If the thinker is thinking about himself in some place, then the form of the thinker will be made in that particular place, in that physical area where he is thinking of going or had been there. The second will be a thought form, which he will make of a particular object which he is thinking about. The form will be made within him, within his astral and the mental body, and it will get projected out in front of him. And the third will be a form which will be made based on what quality, what kind of a thought or desire that he has. It will be a form which is called natural, which is called generic or natural to the astral and mental plane. These are the thought forms. They are fixed. They have been created by they have been made in nature in such a way that they will be made in this way only. So that is why the study of thought forms, when it happens, is usually it is dealt with these kind of forms only. The first two classes people forget about them. Now let us go to what happens when we make thought forms. So there are again three effects of thought forms. Let's go to number one. So when a thought form is made, when it is when the elemental, as we are talking about elementals made unconsciously, when a thought form is created, then what are the effects that this thought form can have? So that is number one. If the man's thoughts are about himself or is based upon a personal feeling, as the vast majority of thoughts are, it hovers around its creator and is always ready to react upon him whenever he is in a moment of in a passive condition. So what happens when I think about something related to myself? As usually most of us think about mainly about ourselves, our conditions, our affairs, our various business matters that we have, various concerns that we have, then the thoughts which are created are personalized to us, and they are created and they pop out of our astral and mental bodies, as we have seen, out of our bodies and in the vicinity of our astral and mental bodies. They remain there. It's like I have created something, a small baby has popped out of me and it is just moving around. But that is not all. We have already read that once these are made, the thought forms, they are no longer under our control. And number two, that we had read earlier today, that the life of this thought form will be dependent upon how much strength with which they had been created. So this popped out thought form, this elemental that it goes out of us, remains within with nearby our astral and mental bodies. And what does it do? Like all small children do, they try to they try to get something out of their mother, their parent. They want attention, and they kind of draw our attention to them. Somehow or the other, they kind of stimulate us to have similar type of thought again and again, so that they can keep their energy levels up. In that way, let us think in that way. Although this is true also, as in, today we will not be able to cover that. In the latter part, he'll say that these thought forms are elementals, are kind of semi-intelligent beings or creatures who have a sense of dying, that they will go, they will die, they will just wither off. So they have a self protective kind of mechanism in which they want themselves to survive more and more. So they try to find vitality because they are near to their creator. They tend to stimulate somehow or the other the creator to have to to give energy to them by thinking about them more and more. So if I have a supposing I have a desire today that I should have tea, and I want to have that particular type of tea which I saw somewhere in a movie, and I saw that very popular hero whom I idolize, that he's having this tea, and I want to have that tea. Now this thought has been created, the desire has been created. Now I go about with my ordinary work. The moment I am free, this thought being in the vicinity of my astral and mental body will now pounce upon me or poke me, because now my mind is not occupied with something. So my mind will get diverted towards this thought. I don't know that this is happening, but really in the astral and the mental world, this is what is happening. But for me, suddenly again, I will think of that tea. I will say, oh, I remember I wanted to have that tea. So I will now look for that tea and have it. And if due to some reason I'm unable to have it, if I get another type of work that I have to do urgently more than them, then again the thought form will remain. And whenever again I will be in a passive condition, again that thought will again pop up. So this way we are having so many desires and so many thoughts. They are in our vicinities, and they tend to stimulate us into thinking about them, giving them more energy. This is how he says here in the second paragraph in the slide, each man travels through space enclosed within a cage of his own building, surrounded by a mass of the forms created by his habitual thoughts. Through this medium, he looks out through the world, and naturally he sees everything modified by these personal forms. This is the last line talks about one thing more, that these multiple hundreds and thousands of forms which are around me, created by me, vivified by me, energized by me, my own creations were out of my control. These thoughts and desires all around me form a kind of a film, a filter, a glass. Just like when we wear glasses, so these are all around me. And whenever something comes from beyond me, some other person's thought comes towards me and affects me, then really I am not seeing that particular thought of another person as it is, but rather it is modified by my own thought forms around me. So this becomes a medium around me through which other thoughts, when they are coming and striking my astral and mental bodies, they have to pass through this medium and they are modified to some extent by these classes, this class of this these types of thought forms which are all around them. So this is the first effect of thought form, in which further in the book Astral Plane he writes that the uh, a man who frequently dwells upon one wish often forms for himself an astral attendant, which, constantly fed by fresh thought, may haunt him for years, even gaining more and more strength and influence over him. And it will easily be seen that if the desire be evil, the effect upon his moral nature may be of a disastrous character. So here he says a particular thought can remain with a person for years and keep on affecting. Already we are habituated to certain type of thinking. So we may have certain types of forms always with us, and he calls them as astral attendants. So we are carrying with us many, many hundreds of such attendants, and we are influenced by them, and we don't know how to deal with these. The knowledge of these really helps us in dealing with these types of thought forms and our habits. Basically, there are certain habits that we have created out of our desires, and there are certain habits which are not good, which, as he has said here, may be due to some reason at some point of time. We may have created certain desires, or we may have had certain desires due to our companionship or due to some other reason. But now we can't let go of them. We have become addicted. The addiction may be just because of this, and maybe later on we'll see how to get rid of these. Now the second is, I want to finish off these three effects. Almost the time is up. If the man's thought is about others, then they can be of two kinds. Either they can be helpful or they can be harmful, but actually they can be neutral also, but usually neutrality is not there. So they will impact in two waves, in terms of waves and forms. Waves will spread in all directions as we have seen, and forms will be sent to that particular person. So first type of effect was depending upon the thought which is personalized. It is related to me. Now, if there is a form, a thought which is about someone else, then that form will go towards that person. And if it is something good about the other person, then it will help the other person. If it is not a good form, it is a negative form, something, some criticism, something negative that we have thought of about the other person, then it will have that kind of negative effect on that person. So we can see how dangerous it is if there are 1,000 to 1 lakh or 10 lakh such negative forms regarding a person. Meaning, if there is a population, there is a group of people who are thinking negatively about a person, then we are actually sending him such negative thought forms. And the effect of such thought forms will be that the impact on such a mental body of a person will produce more negativity in the other person. So, before we go to the negative, let us read about the positive. A kindly thought about any person or any earnest wish for his good forms and projects towards him a friendly artificial elemental. We have just seen that if I have a personal thought form, I made something, I was thinking about myself, and a form is created which is there in my vicinity, in my neighborhood, and it affects me. Then, if I create a form which is goes to another person and affects the other person, then basically what I have done for the other person is I have given him a push towards a particular direction. If the push is towards the goodness, positive direction, then that person will be helped, because this thought form will go in that person's vicinity and affect or impact that person. So if the wish be definite, as for example, that he may recover from some sickness, then the elemental will be a force ever hovering over him to promote his recovery or to ward off any influence that might tend to hinder it. In doing this, it will display what appears like a very considerable amount of intelligence and adaptability, though really it is a force acting along the line of least resistance. So the basic point is that any thought form which is there in my vicinity is going to affect me. If I have in my neighborhood, let's suppose where I live, there are a lot of good people around me, people who are of saintly nature, then obviously I will be affected by them. Companionship makes a big difference. If I am with the company of bad people, people who have negative habits, then I will be affected adversely. The same thing is happening here, that if good wishes and friendly thoughts are being sent to someone, then they are like good companions for the other person. On the other hand, if there are evil wishes, angry thoughts, negative thoughts, of violence towards somebody, then those will be negative companions that I have sent to that person. So it is in my power to see whom I am sending, to whom I wish to do harm or to whom I wish to do good. It is also within my power, and it depends on how I think, what I think. An important point related to this is that if there is a person in whom there is no matter, no matter means no astral or lower mental matter of that type of which the thought form has come. So if I have sent a negative thought to a saintly person who has in his astral and lower mental body none of that coarse matter of which my thought, my desire to hurt him has is present, then this thought form of mine, this elemental of mine, which is made up of coarse negative matter, will go and bounce off from that saintly person and come back and strike me. It's like I have abused a saint who has no impact on him because he does not have any nothing that can excite or make him feel negative towards anyone. He doesn't have any matter within him which can respond to this kind of matter to which it has been sent to him. Then this visitor which comes to him will be returned back, or this gift that I have given to him will come back to me and strike me. So here we have to be careful that when we speak negatively about saintly people, then really we are harming ourselves and not that person. First of all, we should not be speaking negatively about anybody. If we do hear or we feel that somebody may not be that saintly as one is trying to be, then what is it? It's none of our business. Let it go. The other person, it is the business of the other person. Why should we pass judgment? Why should we think? Why should we conclude? Let that person think, do, act, whatever the way the other person wants to act. It is none of our business. So now I think I will stop here. We have passed the time. I will just uh, we'll take up the third later on. The time is up. Mathuji, I would like
शॉर्ट में बता देते थर्ड पॉइंट भी तो तब आगे चलते।
माथुर जी, इसी को मैं अभी क्लियर तो कर
चल
नहीं पाया, इसी को ना जो मुझे
चलो
लगा
ठीक
था।
है ठीक है ठीक है, कोई
मैं
बात
कर देता हूँ, थर्ड भी कर देता हूँ। Here we can see if the thought form be neither personal, we had seen that either I produce thought forms related to myself or I produce a thought form related to somebody else. But there are also thought forms like the climate. What is the climate today? How is the climate today? What is the temperature today? So, like that, certain thoughts which are not related to myself, not related to somebody else. So these form the third types of thoughts, which can be, or third effects of thoughts, which simply float around. They are detached. So if I am present in some place and I have this kind of a thought, then nothing will happen to that form. It will neither be attached to myself nor will it go to somebody else. It will just be dropped where it was formed. So if I'm in a metro station and I have, let's say, 10 such thoughts which are not directed towards myself, not towards somebody else, then those thoughts will remain there itself. And the life of those thoughts will depend upon how much energy with which I had made them. Now, if once they are made and they are dropped there, and I go away from that metro station, somebody else comes and sits in that place or stands in that place where those thoughts are, then that person's mental body will be affected by those thoughts. And if he is not occupied with something else, they may affect him and make him think about those thoughts again. So I think I will stop here, Mathuji. What do you say?
ठीक है, बस बीच में आपने बता दिया इतना इंटरेस्टिंग। और आज हम लोग बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात हम लोग सुन रहे हैं कि एलिमेंटल्स और एलिमेंटल इसेंस। तो और किसी ने भी इसके बारे में कोई क्वेश्चन करना है? देखिए कितने सारे लोगों को हम साथ लेके घूमते हैं। एनीबॉडी कोई कुछ क्वेश्चन करेगा या किसी को कुछ पूछना है या कुछ ऐड
तो
कर?
आज सर आज बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक रहा था ये थॉट फॉर्म्स का है। तो सर एक बात है द थॉट फॉर्म व्हिच आई एम सेंडिंग टू अनदर पर्सन, लेट अस से इफ आई एम सेंडिंग एन a thought of hostility. I have not talked to that person, I have not met him. I am sending thoughts of hostility, or I am sending thoughts of love. So other person will react to me in the same manner.
If I send a thought to somebody and that thought is of negative or positive, it doesn't matter. If the other person can relate to it, भगवान जी आप थोड़ा पहले म्यूट कर लीजिए.
अच्छा अच्छा।
हाँ, thank you. If I send a thought to somebody, positive or negative, if that person is unable to distinguish it, that it has come from someone, or if it fails to impact in such a way as to produce negativity against you, the person who has sent it to me, then there nothing will happen. So if I receive, let's take it in this way in the physical plane, if I receive a letter sent from you, that letter could be a letter in which you are giving me something very nice or you are threatening me, it doesn't matter. If I am able to recognize it has come from you, then I will respond accordingly. If I'm unable to recognize that it has come from you, then I may not even feel it, or I may feel it towards somebody else. This is it is not so specific because of our low stage of development in the astral and the mental bodies, that we are unable to recognize the thought or desire coming from external source, from where it is coming. And what kind of impact it will have depends on other factors as well. Whether I am occupied with something, whether at that moment of time I am thinking about, in general, something related to you or not. Let me give you an example. Supposing a mother is sending the child away for the first time to a hostel or a boarding school and is worried or anxious about the child, and a lot of thoughts are coming towards the child. Then a thought of the child comes back to her that I'm okay and I'm liking it here. then if she recognizes his thought, she may feel that it has come from him and that she feels a little better. But if somebody else were to send her a thought that that person is okay and that person is thinking about this particular lady, then she may not be able to get that thought and may even misinterpret as coming from the child. Many such things are complicated things are happening, and it's very difficult at this point to go deeply into. I don't know whether you understood this point or not. If you have not, please can you clarify further.
Sir, I meant to ask, for example, uh,
भावना जी आप म्यूटेड है.
अनम्यूट कीजिए, देखिए।
मेरे
डॉक्टर
ख्याल
साहब,
से. हाँ, नमस्कार नमस्कार, बोलिए बोलिए.
ये मैं पूछ रहा था, can we wipe out a thought if the thought is undesirable? Is it possible to wipe it out as you write a letter? When we write a letter, something is wrong, or we feel that we don't have to write this, then we strike it off. Similarly, if an undesirable thought comes, can it be wiped out?
Yes, yes. We can just not focus upon that thought or a feeling. That is all. We should refuse to do it.
Yes.
Then the energy of that thought form, which is within our vicinity, will dissipate
Yes.
and go away. The other thing which has been told to us is that if our astral and mental bodies are made from good matter, highest type of matter, meaning that we are always positive, then the negative thought forms will never affect us anyway. So this is that will be a natural protection.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
नमस्कार राजीव जी।
Namaskar.
नमस्कार।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप तो इतनी अच्छी व्याख्या करते हैं कि बातें समझ में आती हैं। लेकिन एक मेरा प्रश्न है कि जो श्रवण कुमार था वो कांवड़ी में अपने माता पिता को लेकर चलता था, लेकिन जब वो कुरुक्षेत्र में पहुंचा, कुरुक्षेत्र की भूमि पे, तो उसने वो कांवड़ी पटक दी वहां पर, और वो कहता है कि मेरे माँ बाप अंधे हैं लेकिन वो चल तो सकते हैं, तो मैं क्यों उनको अपने कंधे पे ढोऊं। तो मुझे आपकी ये वार्ता सुनते सुनते ख्याल आ रहा था कि वो उस कुरुक्षेत्र के का प्रभाव है जहाँ इतनी नेगेटिविटी है, वो नेगेटिविटी के थॉट है, युद्ध के विचार है, परिवार में विध्वंस है। तो और जबकि श्रवण कुमार इतना कि हम ये समझ सकते हैं कि उसकी एस्ट्रल और मेंटल बॉडी बहुत वो फाइनर उससे बनी थी, तो वहां कैसे उसने वो रिएक्ट करा फॉर द मूव, मतलब, और उस स्थान से जब वो आगे बढ़ा तो फिर से वो ठीक हो गया। तो एक प्रश्न तो ये मेरे मन में आया। और जो आपने थॉट की बात कही कि जो सेंटली पर्सन है, हम उसको कोई यदि नेगेटिव थॉट भेजते हैं तो वो बूमरैंग थॉट हो जाता है, वो आके हमें ही लगता है। जैसे बूमरैंग कर्मा होते हैं कि जो हम यदि किसी के उपहास करें, हाथ से करें, तो वो वापस हमारे ही ऊपर उसका प्रभाव होता है। उसी तरह बूमरैंग थॉट होते हैं। लेकिन ये प्रश्न नहीं समझ में आया कि श्रवण कुमार के साथ उस पर्टिकुलर प्लेस पे ऐसी घटना हुई, उसके पीछे क्या कारण था, जबकि किसी ने उसको मतलब टारगेट बना के भी वो थॉट नहीं भेजा था। तो क्या वो स्थान का प्रभाव है? ये प्रश्न है मेरा, आप उसकी जिज्ञासा शांत करें मेरी।
हाँ, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने सही कहा है कि जगह का असर पड़ता है। जैसे अपने बात करी ना कि हम किस वातावरण में हैं, उस वातावरण में कौन कौन से प्रकार के थॉट फॉर्म्स हैं, वो हमारे को असर करते हैं। मगर असर कितना करते हैं ये हमारे ऊपर निर्भर करता है। दूसरी बात कि श्रवण कुमार के केस में पर्टिकुलर क्या हुआ, ये तो मैं नहीं बता सकता हूँ, बड़ा मुश्किल है ये बताना। ये तो इन्वेस्टिगेशन का पार्ट है, तो क्लेयरवॉयंट इन्वेस्टिगेशन करके देखे कि क्या हुआ। मगर ये बिल्कुल हो सकता है कि श्रवण कुमार के साथ में ऐसा हुआ हो जैसे आपने बताया, या किसी और व्यक्ति के साथ में भी हो सकता है। हमारे साथ में भी बहुत बारी हम अच्छे काम भी करते हैं इन्फ्लुएंस में आके। कई लोगों ने जैसे लेक्चर सुने एनी बेसेंट के, फिर उसको स्टडी ज्वाइन कर ली, कई लोगों ने कृष्णमूर्ति की जो जब उन्होंने ऑर्डर ऑफ द स्टार इन द ईस्ट को खत्म करा था, थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी छोड़ दी। तो बहुत सारी चीजें हमारे को प्रभावित करती हैं। और मिला जुका, जैसे मैंने कहा ना, हमारे फिल्टर हैं आसपास, जो फाइनल चीज हमारे पे पहुंचती है उसमें काफी इनपुट्स होते हैं। अकेला एक एक विचार से नहीं फर्क पड़ता, बहुत कलेक्शन में हमें इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है, अनलेस कि एक विचार बहुत स्ट्रांग हो जिसको हम मानते हो। आप कुछ और आगे इसमें ऐड करना चाहेंगे?
नहीं नहीं, थैंक यू। तो क्योंकि वो पर्टिकुलर मुझे ये कंट्राडिक्टरी ये लगा कि वो उसका, अब वो तो मैथोलॉजिकल पर्सनैलिटी है कि क्या है, लेकिन जो कुछ भी हम लोग पढ़ते हैं उसके पीछे हिडन मीनिंग तो रहते हैं। तो मुझे लगा कि वो तो व्यक्ति इतना अच्छा था, पूरे जीवन माता पिता की सेवा करी, और कुरुक्षेत्र में आके संभवतः उस नेगेटिव थॉट का प्रभाव था जो मोमेंट्री उसको जो इफेक्ट किया। आपने जो अभी बताया ना, आंसर मिल गया कि वो उसी क्षेत्र में उसको ख्याल आया, उसके बाद वो एज इट इज अपने माँ बाप को कांवड़ी में लेकर वो घूमने लगा। तो आपने जवाब दिया कि वो मोमेंट्री भी हो सकता है, वो सस्टेन नहीं किया वो थॉट उसके अंदर। तो ये है, क्योंकि वो जब उसके पास से वो एलिमेंटल गया नेगेटिव थॉट का, तो उसको इफेक्ट किया। तो ये बात आपकी बात से समझ में आ गई कि वो परसिस्ट नहीं करा वो थॉट, सस्टेन नहीं करा वो थॉट। यदि सस्टेन करता तो उसका प्रभाव होता, लेकिन स्थान का प्रभाव होता है, ये बात महत्वपूर्ण है। और जो बूमरैंग वाली बात जो मैंने पढ़ी थी, वो जो आपने कही, तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि हाँ, इसको ये वेरीफाई हो गई वो बात। मैंने ये किताब एक बार पढ़ी है, थॉट फॉर्म्स, लेकिन अब जब पढ़ूंगी तो मुझे और क्लैरिटी होगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद राजीव जी, दोनों राजीव जी को, आयोजकों को भी, और राजीव जी इतना गहन विषय और इतने क्लैरिटी के साथ बताते हैं। आई एम ग्रेटफुल टू यू, बोथ ऑफ यू।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू सुषमा जी, थैंक यू दिवाकर जी, थैंक यू डॉक्टर राजीव गुप्ता। आपने इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड कॉम्प्लेक्स सब्जेक्ट को थोड़ा आसान करके हम सब लोगों को समझाया। यहाँ पे एक थॉट मेरे को भी लगता है, जैसे दिवाकर जी ने जो प्रश्न किया कि कैसे करें, तो जैसे जैसे हम लोग के अंदर विवेक जागृत होता है, तो मेरे को लगता है शायद कंट्रेरी थॉट हम लाएं, जैसे लव का, या क्या नाम है, सबके लिए अच्छी फीलिंग का जो मेटा मेडिटेशन, तो शायद वो अपने आप से धीरे धीरे ऐसे थॉट्स कभी अनवांटेड या वो जो हम सोचते हैं वो चले जाएंगे। ये भी एक तरीका मेरे को लगता है सुझाया गया है थियोसॉफिकल स्टूडेंट्स के लिए। और
सर,
किसी ने कुछ कहना
हाँ
है?
सर, माथुर जी, यहीं पे नहीं, योग सूत्र के अंदर भी यही बात आती है, ऑपोजिट्स को डेवलप करने के लिए। मगर पहले हमें पता तो होना चाहिए कि हमें नहीं करना है। तो फर्स्ट जो हो रहा है उसको रोकें और दूसरे को फिर डेवलप करें। तो क्योंकि सवाल ये था कि हम कैसे उससे बचें, अगर क्या हम उसको ब्रेक कर सकते हैं। तो थॉट फॉर्म्स को, दिवाकर जी, थॉट फॉर्म्स को जो स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं उस लेवल पे, तल पे जो एडवांस स्टूडेंट्स हैं, उनको बताया जाता है कि कैसे थॉट फॉर्म्स को ब्रेक करना है। और उनको इनविजिबल हेल्पर्स को सिखाया भी जाता है कि किस तरीके से हम लोग अगर उस जगत के अंदर कुछ नेगेटिव थॉट फॉर्म्स किसी को डरा रहे हैं, कुछ आतंक फैला रहे हैं, तो उनको कैसे हटाना है, डिस्ट्रॉय करना है, भगाना है, और कैसे प्रोटेक्ट करना है, कैसे शेल्स बनाने हैं लोगों को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए। तो इनविजिबल हेल्पर्स के काफी कामों में ये भी एक काम है।
बहुत अच्छा, बहुत सुगम रास्ता आपने बताया है। वी कैन फॉलो दिस।
थैंक यू।
थैंक यू।
अब हम लोग मीटिंग क्लोज करते हैं। अगर किसी को और कुछ कहना है तो, या क्वेश्चन है तो करें, नहीं तो हम लोग मीटिंग क्लोज करते हैं, टाइम हो गया है। सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, न कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Meeting is closed.